In this tutorial video we're going to be seeing how to apply the concept of inheritance in Java. So in the previous video we talked about the theory behind the concept of inheritance, and now we're going to be applying that theory to a practical example. But just before we do that, I just want to draw your attention to this diagram here, because that's what we're basing our example on. In our example we're going to be having a class named animal, which will be known as our superclass. Then we'll have a class named mammal, which will be a subclass of animal, and then we'll have a class named dog, which will be a subclass of mammal, thus also being a subclass of animal, because since dog is a subclass of mammal and mammal is a subclass of animal, dog is also a subclass of animal. This class reptile we won't be using in our example, so don't worry about that. So that being said, now let's go to Eclipse. And as you can see, we have our three classes: animal, mammal and dog. So let's take a look at our class animal here, which is also known as our superclass. So in this class we have two fields, name and age. So the animal's age, the animal's name and its age. We then have a parameterized constructor here with two parameters, name and age. That's why we initialize these two fields at the beginning. And these two, in our constructor, these two fields take on the values of what we input as parameters in the parameters. So that's pretty straightforward. Then, just an example, we have two methods for this class, just to show you that each class has its own methods. So animals eat, for example, and animals walk. Then we have, as you can see, two accessor methods or two getter methods, which are returning the values of the two fields at the top here. I'll explain later why we're going to be using these. It's not really relevant at the moment, so we'll come back to them. So this is what our superclass looks like, our class animal. So now let's take a look at the class mammal, which, as you remember in the diagram, is a subclass of the class animal. So because it's a subclass, it reads out like this: public class mammal extends animal. So mammal, the class mammal, is an extension of the class animal, or in other words, the class mammal is a subclass of the superclass animal. And in this class we're going to be adding a field, which is in this case type blood. We're adding a field because otherwise there's no point using inheritance in classes, otherwise we'd just use one class. So in this subclass we're adding a new field. Now just a point that I didn't make earlier: the reason we're inheriting or we're using inheritance in these classes is if we wanted to use the fields in the superclass here, in the class mammal, we couldn't, because the fields in the superclass are private. So that's why we're using the concept of inheritance, so we can use the fields using the concept of inheritance because they're private. So that being said, now and also just to recap, as I said, we're adding this field here. As you can see, we also have a parameterized constructor in our class mammal, and because again we're inheriting the fields from the superclass, we can use them as parameters in our constructor. Now, to use them as parameters in our constructor, we have to call up, using this instruction super, the constructor of the superclass. So this instruction super calls up the constructor of the superclass, thus letting us use the two fields from the superclass, which were name and age. And as you can see, you can find them in the parameters of our constructor in this class, plus the new field that we've added, type blood, which is, as you can see in our constructor, the field type blood here at the top takes on the value of the parameter here. Okay, and again we have our two methods, just an example, so mammals eat and mammals walk. Okay, so that's our mammal class, which is a subclass of animal. Now we're going to take a look at the final class, dog, which is, as you remember, a subclass of mammal, thus also a subclass of animal. So it reads out like this: public class dog extends mammal. We're also going to be adding a new field, breed, here, so the breed of the dog. Again, because we're inheriting the fields from the classes above, we can use them in the parameter of our constructor. Thus, and we can use them in the parameter of our constructor because we're using the instruction super, calling up the constructor of the superclass. So that's why we can use these three fields that are in the classes above. So in this case, animal and mammal. And as you can see, we find them again in the parameters of our constructor. So name, age, type blood, and then don't forget we have to add the new field that we've created, so breed, and again assigning breed the value of what we input in the parameter. And then again we have the two methods here, eat and walk, so dogs eat and dogs walk. Okay, so now that being said, we can use the fields in the superclass in the subclasses, or the fields of the superclass in all of the subclasses. So just to see if that's the case, let's go to our main program here, or our main main program. And as you can see, we're initializing three objects. So the object animal here, the object mammal here, and the object dog. And remember, we're inputting all of the parameters that we put in our code. So for the case of the animal, it was its name and age. Then for the mammal, it was its name also, age, and the type of blood. And for the dog, it was its name, age, type of blood, and then its breed. Okay, now this is where the accessor method or the getter method comes into play. Because basically what we're doing here with this instruction is we want to print out, after instantiation of the object, the object's name. And to do that, we have to use the accessor method, which is a method in our superclass, remember. So this is just to prove to you that even though a method is in the superclass, we can still use it for its subclasses. So a method in a superclass can be used in subclasses, or in the superclass's subclasses. So as I said, we're printing out the name of the object animal here. So animal.getName, which is the name of the accessor method. And then in the case of the mammal, which is a subclass, we want to display the name using the same method in the superclass. So mammal.getName. And then the same principle for the dog, dog.getName. So let's see if this works. Press OK. As you can see, it prints out the names of the three objects, thus proving to you that a method in a superclass can be used in subclasses. So that's how you apply the concept of inheritance in Java.